The life of Joseph Smith and the religion he founded has been the topic of debate for nearly 200 years. Believing members of the Mormon Church say Joseph Smith is a prophet ordained by God, while others have accused Joseph of being a fraud, an inspired genius, and some say he is a master of the occult sciences, or simply just a product of 19th century esotericism. Many have dedicated their life to researching the prophet Joseph Smith in hope of discovering the man and motives behind the religion he founded. Researchers from this channel have stumbled across new evidence that adds further clarity to the debate. We found a deep esoteric connection to the 16th century, where we found distinct parallels with two occult masters, John Dee and Edward Kelley. The evidence points to these two men as the source whereby Joseph Smith modeled his life and religious aspirations. The connections are so deep that we are giving John Dee and Edward Kelley the distinct title and recognition of Joseph Smith's role models. Many prominent LDS historians and researchers have referenced the connection to John Dee and Edward Kelley in their published works. However, these two occult role models still remain unknown to most LDS members. For LDS apologists, it has become necessary to reference the connection because published research since the mid-1970s has demonstrated that two branches of the Joseph Smith family preserve sacred relics whose inscriptions were copied directly from published handbooks with Magus and occult sciences in the title. Francis Barrett distilled centuries of occult instructions into his 1801 book, which created an immediate sensation. The Magus played an important part in the English revival of magic. The Smiths family layman's included the Francis Barrett's Magus, a well-known book that mentioned Dee and his spirit diary. Francis Barrett wrote several pages about Dee and Kelley in his 1801 The Magus, the source for Joseph Smith's Jupiter talisman that he carried on his person until his death. Dee's ideas that were similar to Smith's are almost all found in Dee's published spirit diary. These similarities include both of them using a seer stone. Dee was perhaps the most famous seer stone user, and both of them wrote down what was dictated by a person using a seer stone. In fact, most importantly to note, Dee is the only person known to have done this before Joseph Smith. Both made numerous references to Enoch in their revelations, and both had revelations that said Enoch was a seer. Both were commanded by God to engage in the highly unorthodox marriage practices, and both were threatened by angels to comply. Perhaps the most striking similarities between Smith's and Dee are found in Smith's father's dreams that his mother Lucy recorded. Lucy recalled 7 of her husband's dreams, all of which had similarities to visions that Dee recorded in his published spiritual diary. Dee's published spirit diary and stories of his life circulated within the same circles as the Smiths. Dee firmly believed that by means of a small black stone with a shining surface and cut in the form of a diamond, which he possessed, he could hold converse with the elementary spirits. Belief in elementary spirits would intersect with subsequent visions of Joseph Smith as a divine seer. Even more parallels have been discovered and will be discussed in this short film. John Dee was one of the most brilliant thinkers of the 16th century, a true Renaissance man. He was on the forefront of science and philosophy in one of the great ages of learning and discovery. Dee became a key figure in the Elizabethan court and one of the Queen Elizabeth's most trusted advisors. But all this was not enough. In his sensational quest for knowledge, Dee strayed into the forbidden world of the occult.
He was trying to find the very essence of life. He was trying to find the secrets of the universe. And for John Dee, that meant communing with angels, communing with demons, risking his soul.
I seek the treasure of heavenly wisdom and knowledge, So why do they condemn me as a companion of hellhounds and a conjurer of wicked and damned spirits?
As Dee went deeper into the occult, he turned his back on Queen Elizabeth and set off on a journey that took him beyond the boundaries of religion and morality. He risked everything in his quest, and his diaries record how ultimately he became the instrument of forces beyond his control, and became an unintended role model for Joseph Smith. John Dee was born in London on 1857. From an early age, he was regarded by his family as an academic genius, destined for greatness. He had a sensational desire for knowledge, and spent many years locked in his study, poring over books of every kind. He mastered Latin, Greek, and Hebrew, and he became adept in astronomy, mathematics, cartography, navigation, and medicine. In the 16th century, the boundaries between superstition, magic, and science were blurred. Dee's work naturally took him into the alchemy and other esoteric areas. The church viewed science with a great deal of suspicion, and some viewed mathematics was a form of black magic. It was a period of enormous change in Europe. The world was in turmoil, as age-old beliefs were being challenged. Those who were pushing the boundaries of knowledge risked being burnt at the stake.
Europe in the early 16th century is a place in spiritual meltdown. In one long generation, Europeans have discovered totally new continents and conquered large areas of them, invented the printing press, realized the full destructive potential of gunpowder, and at the same time, the traditional all-embracing Western church has split forever into Protestant and Catholic blocs.
When Mary Tudor came to the throne in 1553, she returned England to Catholicism, and the smell of burnt Protestant flesh spread all over the country. In this atmosphere of religious paranoia, Mary's half-sister Princess Elizabeth was kept under house arrest for nearly a year. Elizabeth was a devout Protestant, and she became the focus for people's hopes of an end of the persecution. Her situation was bleak. She turned to John Dee, the occultist, for help, asking for Dee to cast her and Mary's horoscope. The Catholic Church viewed astrology with suspicion, and in such tense circumstances, casting royal horoscopes was a dangerous undertaking.
Casting royal horoscopes in early modern Europe is one of the most dangerous things which an astronomer or astrologer can get up to. If you can actually work out what the stars are saying, it could even be you're directing the stars. You might be steering the whole thing, in which case you're actually determining when the monarch's going to live or die, which is technical high treason.
The horoscopes predicted that Elizabeth would come to the throne and enjoy a long and glorious reign. The prognosis for Mary was dire. When the horoscopes were discovered, Dee was thrown into jail. The charges read that he had endeavored to destroy the queen by calculating and conjuring and witchcraft. Similar to Dee, on March 20th, 1826, Joseph Smith was arrested by Constable Philip D. Zhang and brought to court in Bainbridge, New York, on the complaint of Josiah Stoll's nephew, who accused Smith of being a disorderly person and an impostor. Published in Fraser's magazine during 1873, in it, Smith described his divination methods. Smith said he had a certain stone which he had occasionally looked at to determine where hidden treasures in the bowels of the earth were, that he professed to tell in this manner where gold mines were, a distance underground, and had looked for Mr. Stoll several times, and had informed him where he could find these treasures, and Mr. Stoll had been engaged in digging for them, that at Palmyra he pretended to tell by looking at this stone where coined money was buried in Pennsylvania, and while at Palmyra had frequently ascertained in that way where lost property was of various kinds, that he had occasionally been in the habit of looking through his stone to find lost property for 3 years, but of late had pretty much given it up on account of its injuring his health, especially his eyes, making them sore, that he did not solicit business of this kind, and had always rather declined having anything to do with this business, and therefore the court find the defendant guilty. 4 years later, shortly after the publication of the Book of Mormon, Joseph was arrested twice for being a disorderly person. In other terms, arrested on the charge for scrying for hire each time Joseph sent groups off to a site that was shown by way of the seer stone in the hat to be a chest full of treasure, and each time they came up empty-handed and broke. Unlike Smith, Dee's prediction from his divination came to fruition. 3 years after his arrest, Dee's astrological predictions came true. In 1558, Queen Mary died, and Elizabeth came to the throne. Elizabeth immediately appointed Dee her royal astrologer and asked him to choose a coronation date that would be blessed by the heavens. Dee found fame and favor under Elizabeth, giving him license to work in complete freedom. Dee was not content in just working in the sciences, mathematics, and astrology. Inspired by men like Copernicus, he wanted to understand how the entire universe worked.
If we want to look for a comparison with Dee among 20th century figures, a figure like Stephen Hawking, internationally respected scientist, fits it to a cameo. John Dee is a mathematical whiz kid. Mathematics is the key to astronomy, astrology, navigation, chemistry, and John Dee is arrogant enough and clever enough to reckon himself the man to find the key to all these things and show the world how they work.
Dee was convinced there were hidden forces that govern the way the physical world works, but as the years passed, he began to despair of ever finding them.
For 40 years continually, with great pain, care, and cost, I have sought the best knowledge that man might attain in the world. I have found that neither any man living or book was able to teach me those truths I desired and longed for.
Dee has looked into mathematics, he's looked into astrology and astronomy, he's absorbed all these strands, but it still hasn't given him the thing that he wants. He now is prepared to go to the next step, which is to go deep into the occult, into hidden knowledge, in order to try to find these secrets, the very secrets of...
Just like Dee, Joseph Smith felt that neither any man or book could teach him the truths he desired for, nor could the religions that the world had to offer. As Joseph attended different religious meetings, he asked himself, who of all these parties are right, or are they all wrong together? If any one of them be right, which one is it, and how shall I know it? It was these questions that helped Joseph Smith tap into the divine through his background and experience in esotericism. Dee was at the point of giving up his quest when he made a discovery that changed the course of his life. The Steganographia is an infamous black magic manuscript written in the 15th century. The book was written in a coded language that contained many barbarous and strange names of spirits. It was believed that these spirits were the key to a reservoir of hidden knowledge.
In the 16th century, everyone saw angels and demons having a direct role in their lives. There was no controversial issue about the existence of spirits and angels and demons. I mean, they existed. They were part of the universe as it was understood then. And it would almost appear slightly cracked to imagine that they didn't exist.
Dee now believed that the only way to find the answers that he was looking for was through the spirit world. But he found that he had no ability as a medium and turned to scryers for help. Scrying is an ancient occult art in which people would use a seer stone, water, or anything reflective to take the mind out of their consciousness world and into the realm of the supernatural.
The logic behind it was that angels were basically intermediaries with God. If you wanted to find out the word of God, the message of God, of course, traditionally you should use the church, but in the midst of all this religious turmoil, the angels provided effectively a sort of alternative route for a direct line to God. People who were dabbling in these areas were regarded as dangerous because they might release these dangerous forces into the world through their activities.
Joseph Smith's family was trained in the art of scrying and divination. Christopher M. Stafford attended school with the Smith children and had meals at the Smith's house. He said Joe claimed he could tell where money was buried, with a witch hazel consisting of a forked stick of a hazel. He held it, one fork in each hand, and claimed the upper end was attracted by the money. Various sources have stated that during the 1820s, Joseph Smith and his family used divining rods and seer stones as part of the folk magic of treasure seeking. In addition, Smith family members themselves provided evidence of their involvement in more esoteric manifestations of occultism. In fact, Lucy Mack Smith specifically commented on drawing magic circles or soothsaying. Unlike later apologists, she did not attempt to disassociate Joseph Sr. and Jr. from those occult practices. She simply acknowledged them as part of her family's activities. Dee's attempts at scrying yielded nothing until a man with a notorious reputation as a black magician and scryer appeared at his door. His name was Edward Kelley.
Kelley was a strange, difficult, fractious, troublesome character. I mean, as soon as he came into Dee's life, Dee became involved in something that was way beyond his control.
John Dee was somebody who was trying to find a way in to the world of the occult. When Kelley turned up, all of a sudden Dee was provided with what seemed to be a key to that door.
From the moment that Dee and Kelley formed their occult partnership, Dee's diary describes an astonishing supernatural world opening up to them.
So you can perhaps imagine Dee, Kelley, a study full of books. What would start the ball rolling would be Kelley. He would be peering into a polished black mirror or into a crystal ball. If the ritual worked correctly, then entities would be summoned. They would then appear in the crystal to Kelley, at which point him and Dee would interrogate whatever had appeared to them.
Ordinary cast of angelic characters erupted from the crystal ball that he used, from sort of coquettish young maids to these great giants with suns blazing from their eyes. Dee constantly struggled with the angels. I mean, he was constantly questioning whether or not he should believe them. He was questioning whether or not they were angels or whether in fact they were demons disguised as angels.
There are entities whose speech was so apocalyptic, so cold and beautiful and terrifying, that even to modern ears, this is scary stuff.
During the course of what became known as the angelic conversations, 70 different spirits would appear to Kelley. Some appeared human, others monstrous, and some demonic. There were angels they recognized from ancient versions of the Bible, but many of the spirits, like the beautiful Madame Madani, were mysterious and unheard of. Dee fervently recorded every last detail of the scrying sessions in his diary.
In a world where it wasn't magic that he was doing, it was a science of angels. This is somebody approaching this unearthly territory with incredible scientific method.
And Dee was clearly bewitched by this extraordinary set of creatures that Kelley presented to him. And not only were the angels sort of interesting, they were delivering fantastic material. They seemed to be delivering some sort of coded message that would reveal the secrets of the universe.
These angelic conversations took over Dee's life and work. His life would never be the same again. Similarly, Joseph Smith, from a combination of friendly and unfriendly sources, Joseph Smith reportedly seen or was visited by 40 different angels and spirits, some of which caused much contention in the early church. A good example of this was displayed during the first priesthood ordinations. 44 elders, 4 priests, and 15 teachers met in a log schoolhouse near Isaac Morley's farm. Hoping for a spiritual endowment, Levi Hancock, who had earlier been startled by visionaries, was baffled by what happened that day. In an expansive spirit, Joseph said that Christ's kingdom, like a grain of mustard seed, was now before him, and some should see it put forth in its branches. According to Hancock, Joseph promised Lyman Wight he would see Christ that day. Wight soon turned stiff and white, exclaiming that he had indeed viewed the Savior. According to Hancock, Joseph himself said, "I now see God and Jesus Christ at his right hand." Then the meeting unraveled. Joseph ordained Harvey Whitlock to the high priesthood, the most important business of the meeting, and Whitlock reacted badly. He turned as black as Lyman was white, Hancock reported. His fingers were set like claws. He went around the room and showed his hands and tried to speak. His eyes were in the shape of oval O's. Astonished at the turn of events, Hiram exclaimed, "Joseph, that is not of God." Joseph, unwilling to cut the phenomenon short, told Hiram to wait, but Hiram insisted, "I will not believe unless you inquire of God, and he owns it." Hancock said. Joseph bowed his head, and in a short time got up and commanded Satan to leave Harvey. Then Hancock said, Lyman Copley, who weighed over 200 pounds, somersaulted in the air and fell on his back over a bench. White cast out Satan out of Copley, and Copley was calmed. Evil spirit, according to Hancock, was in and out of people all day. This was not the spiritual endowment the elders had expected, and the outbursts may have contributed to trouble and unbelief among the disciples. John Whitmer noted that about this time, some apostatized. Dee's young wife, Jade, detested Kelley. She believed he was evil and that the angelic conversations would lead them to ruin.
He knew how dangerous it was to be involved in the kind of activities that him and Kelley were involved in, and he carried on with them. He risked everything for this.
There was a great tempest of wind at midnight as we left Mortlake with our wives and children toward 2 ships waiting for us near Gravesend.
So Dee decides to up and leave, take his family, and on the words of Medini, go to Poland. And if he does this, the angels have promised him great secrets are going to be revealed. I mean, this is an amazing thing for him. It's a lifetime, a one-time opportunity to try to find out why we're here, how things work, why they work, and the angels have promised him that. So yeah, of course, you're going to go along with what the angels say. Why wouldn't you?
As soon as Dee left the town of Mortlake, a mob descended upon the house, and his library and alchemy labs were ransacked. For Dee, Kelley, and their families, there was no going back. After an epic 6-month journey, they arrived in the Polish capital, Kraków. As soon as they got there, they began scrying again, and the angelic messengers were delivered with even greater intensity. It seemed to Dee that his unshakable faith in the angels was about to be rewarded.
They're told that there's something, a powerful message is going to be dictated to them. The first angel begins to talk to them about a lost book of Enoch, which is the language of the angels, the original language spoken by Adam before the fall.
The angel told us, "I will open to thee the secrets of nature and the riches of the world. Many thousand secrets in which you are still yet but children."
This was the same language that was revealed to Enoch, who in biblical tradition was the first person to speak with God after the fall of man. The language, it is said, is the power by which we were all made, by which nature was framed and the whole universe was constructed. It is the very mathematics, it is the very framework of all the mystery of all creation.
Dee believed that the language he was about to receive would be the key to unlocking the secrets of the universe. Letter by letter, the dictation of the Enochian language began. After months of scrying and hundreds of hours looking into the seer stone, the angels revealed what appeared to be a completely new language.
Enochian language is designed to express the primal essence of things. When it's spoken, it's supposed to be spoken from the stomach, from using the magical voice. It's a very barbarous and rich-sounding language. Gahe istiva kahizami mikelizodu. Spirits of ye fourth angle are 9, mighty in the firmament of the waters. Alaheregi.
The Enochian language is based on an alphabet of 22 letters. The language has its own words, grammar, and syntax, and resembles no known tongue. Although some scholars have compared it to Hebrew, attempts to discover its origins have been unsuccessful.
To suppose that this is an invented language, invented by Kelley, you would have to suppose that Kelley was some sort of creative and linguistic genius who was able to spontaneously invent a functional working language complete with grammar and vocabulary, and not only invent it, but invent it backwards.
Joseph Smith and other early church leaders demonstrated an abiding interest in ancient languages, including Egyptian, Hebrew, and even the pure or Adamic language believed to be spoken by Adam, Eve, and their children. The resemblance between Smith's scrying activities and those of the famed sorcerer are incredible. Dee built much of the foundation upon which modern Satanism rests, the so-called Enochian system of keys or calls, and like Dee, Smith used a seer stone to translate an unknown language, letter by letter, and he was able to get information about ancient cultures. Smith did his own scrying, while Dee had a seer to look into the stone for him. Today, these calls that Dee brought through are part of the darkest pits of black magic. They made up about 1/3 of the Satanic Bible and are used by Satanists. Not only did Joseph claim to translate an unknown language he called Reformed Egyptian, but he also gave a sample of the Enochian language or Adamic language that was carefully preserved by the Joseph Smith Papers Project. From the transcript. Question: what is the name of God in pure language? Answer: Amen. Question: the meaning of the pure word of Amen? Answer: it is the being which made all things in all its parts. Question: what is the name of the Son of God? Answer: the Son Amen. Question: what is the Son Amen? Answer: it is the greatest of all parts of Amen, which is the Godhead, the firstborn. Question: what is man? Answer: this signifies sons Amen, the human family, the children of men, the greatest parts of Amen's sons, the Son Amen. Question: what are angels called in pure language? Answer: Amen, angels, men. Question: what are the meaning of these words? Answer: Amen's, ministering servants, sanctified, who are sent forth from heaven to minister for or to sons, Amen, the greatest part of Amen's son, sons Amen's son, Amen, Amen. Lastly, Joseph Smith, in relation to the Book of Abraham translation, created what we now know as the Egyptian alphabet and grammar, which has been completely debunked by Mormon and non-Mormon Egyptologists alike. The characters are not Reformed Egyptian, but instead they are more like deformed English and Latin. The bulk of Smith's Egyptian Book of Alphabet and Grammar is a detailed notebook showing Smith's apparent interpretation of the Egyptian language. Here is a sample of what is written. Loda, or Kai, Zub-Zul Owen, Ki compound, Owen compound. The significance of Beth is man's first residence, of Iota, the I, of Zub-Zul Owen, the beginning of time. Brom, the father of the faithful, the first right, the elder. Ki Brom, that which goes before, until an other time, or a chance by appointment. The first, faithful, or father, or fathers. Iota nehak aq, a mark of distinction, qualifying different degrees, increasing or lessening the power of the sentences according to their significance, as for instance, iota nelahaka aq, as in the margin, signifies I saw 25 persons, or signifies 25 persons. Alish, the name of the first being. Fahahi, the first man, Adam, first father. Faha, a more universal reign. Fahoyu, the lineage of a royal family. Hu-ha, crown of princes or unmarried queen. Z, virgin, an unmarried female. Katuman, the name of a royal family in the female line. Zeup-ha, an unmarried woman, a virgin princess. Huip-up, a young unmarried man, a prince. Zip-z, a woman married or unmarried, or daughter, signifies all or any woman. Huya-ha, crown of a prince. Owen, the earth. Toan, tohita, esto, et-ts, a principle that is beneath, disgusting, not fit. Iota, the eye, or I see. Iota tuis zip z, the land of Egypt. Suhi na, who, whence, and an interrogative pronoun through its degrees. Ho u ha fa e, reign or rule, governments, power, kingdom, or dominion. Zabzu e, in the beginning of the earth or creation. Professional Egyptologists, to whom the alphabet and grammar was submitted for examination, were quick to point out that the material in Joseph Smith's notebook bore no resemblance at all to any correct understanding of the Egyptian language. As one of them put it, the whole work was largely a piece of imagination and lacking in any kind of significant value. He added that it reminded him of the writings of psychic practitioners, which are sometimes sent to me. The angelic conversations were becoming increasingly sinister, and according to Kelley, she began to show her shame. The angel Medini seemed now to have lost her innocence.
Medini appeared, and she said, "Nothing is unlawful which is unlawful unto God. One committing adultery on my behalf shall be blessed eternally, and given a heavenly reward."
The angels, or Medimi, reveals herself naked in the crystal and says that they have to cross-match with each other's wives. Dee and Kelley have to swap wives. Now, this is a terrible thing. Jane Dee detests Kelley. Poor Jane cries for 15 minutes. She won't do it. Kelly's not happy. He thinks they're in league with demons. Really, it must seem like they are now to be asked to do such a terrible thing. But for Dee, it's a final test for him to get the secrets of nature at the end of this. He will reach the next level, go to the next stage.
The test seemed to be an affront to the laws of God, and it shook Dee to the core. He had risked everything for the angels, but was he now prepared to risk his soul? During Dee's lack to respond to the angel's request, the angel took away John Dee's seer stone because Dee and Edward Kelley balked at the command to share wives. Then suddenly, a new message appeared on another stone in their possession. It was from Christ. Christ told them, "And behold, this that is taken away shall be restored again to you with more power, and might shall be in it a breastplate unto you of judgment and knowledge." Dee would get a better stone. Smith likewise received better seer stones with the breastplate that he then traded in for his own boyhood seer stone. In Smith's 1839 account, he said Moroni told him there were 2 stones in silver bows, and these stones fastened to a breastplate constituted what is called the Urim and Thummim, deposited with the plates, and the possession of the use of these stones was what constituted seers in ancient or formal times, and that God had prepared them for a purpose of translating the book.
And he battles against it, and he says he won't do it, and he says he can't do it, and then he gives in. And ultimately he becomes the instrument of the angels. Ultimately, and he does everything that they tell him to do.
So here they draw up a contract after 2 days that they all solemnly sign, and they do go ahead and recorded in Dee's diary, the pact is fulfilled.
I can see there is no other remedy but for our cross-matching. So it must be done. I offer my soul as a pawn.
Dee wasn't the only one threatened by an angel if he did not obey the command to take another man's wife. Mary Rawlins Lightner, one of the plural wives of Joseph Smith, later said he told her about the pressure he was under. Quote, "The angel came to me 3 times between the year of 34 and 42 and said I was to obey that principle or he would slay me," end quote. Others told the story with additional detail. The angel held a drawn sword. Joseph went on to marry 11 other women that were married to other men. All of them went on living with their first husbands after marrying the prophet. Joseph told prospective wives that submitted to a plural marriage that this would ensure your eternal salvation and exaltation, and that of your father's household, and all your kindred. In October 1841, Joseph married Zena Huntington Jacobs, wife of Henry Jacobs. Zena was a pious young woman of 20 who had spoken in tongues and heard angels singing. Joseph and Emma had cared for Zena and her siblings for 3 months in 1839. After their mother died, when Joseph explained plural marriage to her the following year, her first response was to resist. Accepting Henry, who was courting her at the time, meant saying no to Joseph. Zena changed her mind after her brother told her the angel threatened Joseph's life. That image, plus her own inquiries, convinced her, quote, "I searched the scriptures, and by humble prayer to my heavenly Father, I obtained a testimony for myself that God had required that order to be established in this church." Even after this assurance, she despaired of the consequences. Quote, "I made a greater sacrifice than to give my life, for I never anticipated again to be looked upon as an honorable woman by those I dearly loved." End quote. On October 27, 1841, her brother Dimmock performed the marriage on the banks of the Mississippi. The personal anguish caused by plural marriage did not stop Joseph Smith from marrying more women. He married 3 in 1841, 11 in 1842, and 17 in 1843. 8 additional women were sealed to Joseph in the temple after his death, possibly implying a marriage while he was still alive. For Dee, the wife swapping did not produce a great revelation. The language that the angels, Christ, Kelley, and Dee used to describe the commandment had a number of similarities to Smith's description of his own marital system. Dee called the commandment this new covenant, and Smith called his the new and everlasting covenant. Both Smith and Dee said they were threatened by angels to comply, and both described the command as an Abrahamic test. Smith and Dee used a number of biblical utopian phrasings when describing the arrangement, such as, "Your unity and knitting together is the end and consumption of the beginning of my harvest." In the Book of Mormon, Alma tells his followers, quote, that they should look forward with one eye, having one faith and one baptism, having their hearts knit together in unity and in love one towards another, end quote. Dee wrote up a covenant when the 4 agreed to the arrangement, saying they agreed to indissoluble and involvable unities, and all things between us to be common. Both Acts 2 and 4th Nephi in the Book of Mormon spoke of the faithful having all things in common. After Dee and the others made the agreement, Christ told them, "See that all things be one among you." Christ told the Mormons in one of Smith's revelations, "I say unto you, be one, and if ye are not one, ye are not mine." Dr. John Dee died in 1608. He never deciphered the Enochian language, but it formed the basis of a magical system that continues to be practiced by occultists in our day.
Dee has suffered a lot at the hand of history.
You could say he backed the wrong intellectual horse. Certainly few people today are interested in angel magic outside of the fringes of the occult. I think we should remember him as someone who was willing to risk everything to know, someone for whom the pursuit of knowledge was worth risking his body, his immortal soul, his reputation, everything.
All Dee wanted to find was the truth, the paths he went down, the extraordinary lengths he went to, and what is left is inexplicable. It's an enigma, it's a mystery. But in the end, Dee did it because he wanted to find out the real truth behind everything.
Today, no one...
John Dee has inspired a following of million Satanists and New Age Wiccans. Some say even more followers than the current active membership of the Utah-based LDS Church. As for Joseph Smith, he risked everything, including his life, and most of what he left was an enigma, a mystery shrouded with broken truth claims, and a religion that has splintered into 200 different groups. The mystery of Joseph Smith's life has come one step closer to being defined by the history of his role models like Dee and Kelley, and continues to be defined by those who come after Smith. Thank you for watching Joseph Smith's Role Models. For more information, please review the footnotes below in the video.